The Communist Manifesto, Complete Summary. Chapter 1. Bourgeois and Proletarians. In the first chapter of the Communist Manifesto, Marx and Engels present a historical and structural analysis of class relations in capitalist society. They start from the principle that human history is marked by a constant struggle between oppressors and the oppressed, from ancient societies to the modern era. This class struggle is the driving force of history, leading to significant social and economic transformations. The authors highlight that capitalism emerges as the dominant economic system after the fall of feudalism, with the bourgeoisie taking on the role of the ruling class. The bourgeoisie is described as the great protagonist of modernity, responsible for technological advancements, the expansion of the global market, and transformations in the social structure. However, these advancements have come at the cost of the exploitation of the working class, the proletariat. The bourgeoisie, in developing the capitalist system, simplified social relations. The complex feudal hierarchies were replaced by a central dichotomy, the division between the bourgeoisie, the owners of the means of production, and the proletariat, who sell their labor power to survive. The exploitation of the proletariat is intrinsic to capitalism, as bourgeois profit is obtained through surplus value, that is, the excess value produced by the worker and appropriated by the capitalist. Marx and Engels highlight the revolutionary dynamics of capitalism, which constantly transforms the means of production, breaks down cultural barriers, and expands markets. However, this process generates recurring economic crises. Capitalist crises are not caused by scarcity, but by overproduction, a paradox in which goods and wealth accumulate but fail to find a consumer market due to social inequality and the limited purchasing power of the proletariat. A central point is the growing social polarization. Capitalism concentrates wealth in the hands of a few, while the majority is pushed into poverty. This inequality, the authors argue, sows the seeds of its own destruction. While exploiting the proletariat, the capitalist system also organizes and strengthens it. Factories and industries bring workers together in large groups, fostering class consciousness and the ability to resist collectively. Historical examples are used to illustrate these dynamics. The Industrial Revolution in England, for instance, is mentioned as a milestone in the development of modern capitalism, showcasing both technological advancements and the degrading conditions imposed on workers. Proletarian uprisings, such as the Luddite movement, are presented as the first signs of resistance to the capitalist system. Marx and Engels also emphasize the role of the global market in the consolidation of capitalism. The globalization of capital breaks down national and cultural barriers, but also subjugates local economies and intensifies the exploitation of peripheral regions. Colonialism in this context is an extension of the capitalist system aimed at extracting wealth and expanding markets. At the end of the chapter, the authors suggest that capitalism is a transitional historical stage. Its ability to generate wealth is accompanied by the creation of its own contradictions, which will inevitably lead to its overcoming by socialism. This analysis sets the stage for the following chapters, where the proposals and objectives of communism will be discussed. In summary, the first chapter of the Communist Manifesto lays the foundation for understanding the class struggle within capitalism, highlighting both its internal dynamics and contradictions. By addressing history, economics, and society, Marx and Engels provide a comprehensive and critical view of the capitalist system, pointing to the need for a revolutionary transformation. Chapter 2. The Bourgeoisie and the Proletariat. Rise of the Bourgeoisie. It begins with a discussion examining the emergence of the bourgeoisie, the capitalist class that controls the means of production. They argue that the bourgeoisie emerged from the favorable conditions created by the feudal system, particularly with the growth of trade and industry. The Industrial Revolution is highlighted as a key milestone that enabled the bourgeoisie to expand its power and influence in society. Profound social transformations. It emphasizes that the bourgeoisie not only established new economic relations, but also brought about a significant transformation in the existing social structures. The old classes and feudal power relations were replaced by a new reality characterized by private property and capitalist production. This change resulted in the concentration of wealth and power in a small number of individuals, transforming the social landscape of the time. The proletariat. The concept of the proletariat refers to the working class, which, in order to survive, sells its labor power in exchange for wages. It emphasizes the often adverse conditions in which workers live, highlighting how the exploitation of labor power becomes an intrinsic feature of the capitalist system. The proletariat is presented as the oppressed class that, by experiencing this exploitation, holds the potential necessary to challenge and overthrow the bourgeoisie. Class struggle. One of the central ideas of the chapter is the notion that human history is marked by conflicts between social classes. The authors argue that the struggle between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat is inevitable, as the interests of both classes are fundamentally antagonistic. The bourgeoisie relentlessly seeks to maximize its profits, while the proletariat fights for better working conditions and a more equitable distribution of the wealth generated. Proletarian awareness and organization. The chapter concludes with the idea that, as workers become more aware of their condition of exploitation and mobilize, there is a real possibility that they will unite to challenge bourgeois domination. This organization of the proletariat is seen as a vital step toward revolution and the overcoming of the capitalist system, paving the way for the emancipation of the working class. Chapter 2 of the Communist Manifesto offers a detailed analysis of the interactions between social classes, the rise of the bourgeoisie, the living conditions of the proletariat, and the inevitability of class struggle. Marx and Engels thus established the theoretical foundations for the proposal of a proletarian revolution, which they believed was essential for the liberation of workers from capitalist oppression. Chapter 3. The Critique of Hegel's Philosophy of Right. Marx and Engels begin the chapter by discussing Hegelian dialectics, a philosophical method that Hegel used to understand the evolution of ideas and social reality. They recognize the importance of dialectics in its Hegelian form, but argue that Hegel applied it in an idealistic way, moving away from material reality and the concrete social conditions. For Marx and Engels, true dialectics must be applied to the materiality of life and social relations, not just to the realm of ideas. The authors criticize how Hegel approaches the state and society. Hegel views the state as the realization of freedom and rationality, an entity that represents the general will. However, Marx and Engels argue that this view ignores the contradictions and inequalities that exist within society. They argue that the state, under capitalism, serves the interests of the bourgeoisie, perpetuating the exploitation of the proletariat. For them, true freedom is not found in submission to the state, but in overcoming class oppression. Marx and Engels also explore the relationship between religion and social criticism. They assert that, according to Hegel, religion is a form of consciousness that reflects social reality. However, they view religion as an illusion that prevents individuals from recognizing their true condition of exploitation. In criticizing religion, the authors aim not only to deconstruct religious ideology, but also to emphasize the need for critical consciousness that allows workers to understand their position in capitalist society. A notable example cited in the chapter is the idea that the emancipation of the proletariat cannot be achieved through reforms within the existing system. Marx and Engels argue that, to attain true emancipation, a revolutionary movement is necessary to transform social and economic structures. They emphasize that the proletarian struggle must be a fight for a new social order, not just a fight for rights within the capitalist system. The critique of Hegelian idealism is therefore a call to action for workers to recognize the concrete reality of their exploitation and mobilize for change. Marx and Engels emphasize that the emancipation of workers must be achieved by the workers themselves through collective struggle and organization. The chapter concludes with the idea that the critique of Hegel's philosophy of right must be a practical critique, one that takes into account the material reality of the proletariat's living conditions. Marx and Engels argue that philosophy must be rooted in the concrete struggle for emancipation, not in ideal abstractions. This critique becomes a central element in the formation of Marxist thought, which is based on the analysis of material conditions and class relations. In summary, Chapter 3 of the Communist Manifesto offers a strong critique of Hegelian philosophy, highlighting the importance of materiality in social analysis. They argue that the true emancipation of the proletariat requires overcoming the contradictions of the state and a revolutionary struggle against class oppression. This chapter serves as a call for workers to become conscious of their condition and mobilize to transform society toward a more just and equal future. Chapter 4. The position of the communists toward the various opposition parties. They analyze the relationship of communists with other political parties and movements in different countries. The focus is on outlining how communists can strategically collaborate with other groups without compromising their fundamental goals: the emancipation of the proletariat and the abolition of social classes. Reflecting the practical and tactical nature of communism, they reaffirm its non-negotiable ideological principles. Marx and Engels argue that although communists are an independent organization, they should seek alliances with other opposition movements that share common interests in the struggle against the bourgeoisie. These collaborations are seen as temporary and conditional, as they serve to advance class consciousness and weaken the capitalist system. An example is the support for democratic movements fighting against autocratic regimes or colonial oppressors, as such conflicts could create more favorable conditions for the development of the proletarian struggle. The authors highlight that, in different national contexts, communists must adapt their strategies. In France, for instance, where the proletariat already had a certain degree of organization, the focus was on supporting the democratic republic against the monarchy. In Germany, a country where capitalism was still emerging, communists sought alliances with the progressive bourgeoisie to defeat the remnants of feudalism. Regarding Poland, the manifesto advocates supporting national independence as a way to destabilize the reactionary powers in the region, while in Switzerland, communists supported the radical Democrats. However, Marx and Engels are categorical in stating that communists should never lose sight of their ultimate goals. While they may collaborate with other groups, they always represent the global and long-term interests of the proletariat, in contrast to the particular and immediate interests of other parties. Communists differentiate themselves by not merely seeking reforms or short-term improvements within the capitalist system, but rather its total abolition. Another relevant aspect addressed in this chapter is the need to combat ideologies that mask the true class contradictions. Marx and Engels criticize movements that propose superficial or utopian solutions, warning against the risk of perpetuating exploitation under new forms. Communist practice requires theoretical clarity and firmness in its principles, even amidst tactical alliances. The chapter concludes the manifesto with a call for the international unity of the working class. The final phrase, "Workers of all countries unite," encapsulates the internationalist vision of communism and the need for global solidarity to overcome capitalism. It makes clear that the proletarian revolution cannot be limited by national borders, as capitalism is a global system. Therefore, the struggle for the emancipation of the proletariat must be conducted in a coordinated and international manner. In summary, the fourth chapter of the Communist Manifesto reflects the combination of pragmatism and idealism that characterizes Marxist thought. While recognizing the importance of tactical alliances, it reaffirms the fundamental principles of communism and the need for a radical transformation of society. This was today's summary. Consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like to help us. Thank you very much.